One, how good evening, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Buying and Selling with Bree. My name is Labrita Dews, and I am a realtor in the Dallas Fort Worth area. How are you? How's everyone doing? How's everyone day been so far? I just want to thank everybody that has joined and will be joining. Let me start with talking about the market that we're in right now. It's a tough market. It really is a tough market out there. Um, Houses are staying on the market one day. Uh, Offers, multiple offers on every property, regardless of where it's located. Um, Buyers are just wanting a nice home. Right now, most of the buyers, especially the real first time home buyers, they are qualifying for 250 and less. And in that market, it's really a tight market because it's so many buyers that are in that market. And with that market, people are still offering over asking price, and sometimes it's still not enough. So it's just so rough out there right now, and I tell all the buyers just keep pushing and just keep going. And with the first time home buyers right now buying a new house, if you're only qualified for 250, it's really kind of, you might be out because the price of houses are steadily going up every day, and it's rough out there. It is even hard out there sometimes for the people that are approved for 350. They're even getting outbid. And the reason why that they're getting outbidded because you have a lot of cash buyers that are coming in and they're buying homes, and then you have a lot of other companies. I really can't name them, that are coming in and paying cash and closing within 10 days. So I say to all buyers, keep pushing, keep going, save your money, make sure your credit is right. Make sure you do have enough money saved up for down payment and then some closing costs. Make sure you talk to your lender about what other programs that are available out there for you to help you with your closing costs and your down payment. you know uh, just don't give up. Just don't give up. And being a buyer in this market, sometimes we are, as buyers, we as agents, the buyer wants to be in a certain area, and sometimes that area may not be in their price range. Sometimes the buyers, we would like the buyers to be a little open-minded as to say, well, I will look over there, or I will look over here. But it's just the type of market that we're in. There are no houses on the market, and it's rough out there. And I tell anybody buying a house, you can do the main thing you can do is be patient. Make sure that you are actually ready to buy a house. Make sure that your pre-approval has been through underwriting. So when it's time to, put an offer in, that you are good to go. And sometimes a lot of the lenders will call the agent to let the agent know, hey, my client is ready, so they can do this and they can do that. Sometimes that'll make the seller's agent real comfortable. And also too, a lot of people right now, they are seeming to be investing in Airbnbs, or you know they are just investing in houses, and a lot of people are renting them out. A lot of the cash buyers, some of them are coming from out of state, California, Arizona, and still you have a lot of buyers here too, investors here too, that are buying homes. So just don't give up, and just keep pushing. As far as the sellers, whew, they making money over top of money. They know that they can put their house on the market and they will have, you know, over 10 offers on their property. And it's still up to the seller. It's not up to the agent as to which offer that the seller picks. We as realtors, we present the offers to the sellers, and we just give them the bottom line of how much they're going to get. What is this client asking for? If they're asking for this, if they're asking for that. So we as realtors, we just, all we do, we take the offers, we present them to the sellers, and we let the sellers select the offer. Another good thing when you're buying a house is shortening your closing. You know, try not to go over 30 days. Try not to ask for too many concessions, because it's so many buyers out here now that the seller knows that, hey, this person is asking for closing, this person is not. This person is closing in um, wants to close in 30 days, and this person wants to close in 20 days, and then boom, here comes a cash buyer, and they want to close in 10 or 15 days, and that's what's happening right now. But I tell everybody, the market is good to buy a house, but you got to be ready to buy a house. You got to make sure that your credit is right. You got to make sure you have get a good realtor that knows what they're speaking of. Just stick with your realtor. Don't give up on them, because sometimes you can put in like 5 or 6 offers, and it's not that your offer wasn't good. It's just that it was so many offers on that property, and it's just the type of market we're in. So the market, like I said, that we're in, the houses are getting more expensive. It's almost, you know counting out the first time home buyers, houses are starting at $300,000. And also too, speaking of that, on a pre-owned home, you can close within 30 days. So when you buy a new home, you are looking at anywhere from 6 months to a year to build. So be patient. Just make sure that you understand, if the client, if the builder tells you, oh, we're going to close in August, and something comes up and you can't close till September, just be patient, because most of the time is not being able to get the supplies. You can't get the air conditioner, you can't get doors, you can't get windows, the cement is every builder is feeling the same effects as um, anybody else. But I also want to say that just make sure, whatever you do, when you are a buyer and you're buying a home, make sure you have all your documents in order. You got to have everything in order, as far as your 2 years of tax returns. Make sure you have pay stubs. Make sure you have bank statements. If you are have a 401k or through savings, if that's what you're using towards your closing costs, then you make sure you present that um, to the agent. It's 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 a lot. And when you're also buying, the difference between buying a pre-owned home and a new home, when you buy a pre-owned home, you sometimes you may have issues with the house, and buyers need to understand, some buyers are bypassing the inspection because they want the property. you know Try to get an inspection on the house. That way you can make sure that everything is, up and ready. The roof, the plumbing, the foundation, the electrical work. Just make sure that you do get an inspection on the house. That's just me. On the new build, everything is brand new. Everything is still brand new on the house, but you, as the buyer of a new build, you can still get an inspection on the house. Just let your realtor know that you would like to get an inspection on the house. One of the questions that I have is, does it matter how old the house is? How No, it doesn't matter how old the house is. I don't care if the house is 2 years old. I don't care if the house is 20 years old. I really encourage everyone to get an inspection, but it's still up to the buyer. if they want, to get an inspection or not, because a lot of money is tight. But it's still up to the buyer to make sure that what they're purchasing don't have any, uh, major issues to go with it. And as far as a new build, it really doesn't matter if it's a new build or not. Sometimes there are still issues with the new build. Is human error. It is human error. So um, sometimes you can go in a new build and the electrical is not right, or they didn't put the right plug there, or the wiring is not right. So just make sure whatever you do, whether it's a pre-owned home or whether it's a new build, you can still, as the buyer, get an inspection done on the home. Now, some builders, they may not want you to do that, but to be on the safe side, if that's what you want to do. A lot of buyers do not do um, inspections on a new build because they feel like, that it's okay. And then they have a certain time to uh, come back once you close on a house, for them to correct it. So just make sure whatever you do, cover every area. If you're a buyer, get the inspection done, put in a repair request, see what the seller can agree to fix. Sometimes they will come back and say they will fix this, and sometimes they'll come back and say they won't fix anything. That's where you'll get with your realtor and you'll decide what you want to do. And on the new build side, if the house is not too far in the process, the builder will probably correct the situation. I can't say that the builder will, but they may correct the situation. So I just want to make sure that you all understand, when you're buying a house, just make sure you look at every detail of the house, especially a pre-owned home. You look at the foundation of the house. You check out everything in the house. You ask all the questions that you can about a pre-existing home. And that way you can make sure that it's what you want. You don't want to move into a house and there's problems. So just make sure that that you do that. So, and as far as the sellers, when you are doing a repair request, just make sure what you're asking for, it's like, okay, the electrical, the main thing you want to look at when you're doing an inspection is the electrical, the plumbing, the foundation, the windows. You just want to make sure that everything is right. And when you're buying a process with buyers, the main thing buyers have, once they get an offer accepted, the main problem that buyers have is giving all documents after they have provided the documents in the beginning of the stage. So here tonight, we have DeMont and Kay Mathis. DeMont is the general manager of Legacy Home Mortgage, and Miss Mathis is the processor. So without further ado, let's welcome DeMont and Kay Mathis of Legacy Home Mortgage. They will be talking about the processing of the loan, what to expect during the process. In other words, the paperwork that the processor will ask for. Miss Kay may be a little bit under the weather today, so Mr. DeMont will try to, answer as many questions as she can. Welcome, DeMont. How are you doing today? I can't hear you.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm doing wonderful. I can't right now. I can't complain.
Okay, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is DeMont Mathis with Legacy Home Loans. I'm a branch manager of our Dallas location, DFW. Actually, the only location thus far in DFW Metroplex. Um, really excited. First time branch manager. And I'm looking to try and do some things that, quote unquote, is going to change the game. The good thing about it is I get to do this with my wife as my processor, who's also a licensed loan officer. She should be joining us here in a few seconds, which she can start answering some of those processing questions for you. But I was listening to you and listening to a lot of things that you were saying. You were spot on everything that you said regarding the market. More importantly, talking about the things that our buyers are running up against, because it's really, really a tough market, extremely tough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think and I don't want to step on no toes or whatnot. If you just want me to start talking a little bit, I'm gonna put my headset on so she can hear, so I can hear a little better. Um, the thing of it is, one of the things that caught my attention was, can you hear me?
Yes. Uh huh.
Was one of the things that you were saying pertaining to
It's a little fuzzy.
regard?
It, it's still a little fuzzy.
Hello? No? No? Okay, let's
No.
try. Hello?
Okay. Can you hear us?
Is
Can
that
you hear
better?
us?
That's
Yeah,
better.
that's better. It was just a little
Okay, all
static
right. So
there.
no headset. So one of the things that I was listening to was a lot of people from different states are actually coming, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of the questions that I've been asked is, do you think the market is going to get back to what it was? And initially, I was saying, you know what, I believe so, but now I'm beginning to think that it might not ever get back to what it was prior to COVID, because we have so many people that are moving up here from different states, primarily
Yes.
those states, like you said, California, Florida, Arizona, where the price of housing is so high that they can come up here and pay what, for a 3,000 square foot house, they paying cash for that. And they had a 800 square foot house in California.
Yeah, and they're selling it for five, six, $700,000.
Exactly.
Some of them are selling their houses for $1 million, and then they can come here and get a bigger house for a $500,000 or cheaper than that. It depends on the area that you're in.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's again, the market, I figure we're going to really have a clear understanding of really where we are over the slow months, typically during the holidays,
October,
and
November,
going
and
into the first of
December.
the year,
Yes. Uh-huh.
so we'll kind of know where we are by that time frame, to be honest.
So let me ask you something for someone that's listening that's a buyer. When you say the market may not ever get back to where it was, are you talking about price wise? Are you talking about a buyer can just go into a new build and buy a house? Or are you just talking about plentiful houses on the market? Can you explain that
Um,
to the buyer? That's
yeah, it's
listening.
twofold. I mean, when you're talking about price, first of all, we're talking about price.
Mm-hmm.
The values are through the roof, right? So
Yes.
one of the problems that we'll face, if the market goes back to what it was, then what happens to your value? The houses that, an example, I had a appraiser come in today. Purchase price is a new build. Purchase price was 405,000. Price for 420. So if we go back to what we were prior pre-COVID, you're talking about that house not selling at 405. It's probably 325.
Yes.
So you ask
Yes.
yourself, what is it
That's right.
appraising for? And
Yeah.
now we're in this situation where these houses are appraising. If they stop appraising for the dollar amount in which they are right now, then what problems are we having? Now we're back to '06, where our
Well,
houses are not valued as much.
it'll be underwater, and people are just
Exactly.
going to want more on their house than what is actually, you know, what it prays for. So, the other question I have is when you say, like for first time home buyers that are here, how can you? Me, I just tell them don't give up. You as the lender, what type of buyers are you mainly looking at? FHA or conventional buyers, or what are you looking at for first time home buyers? Because you do have a lot of buyers that just can't qualify no more than 250, and that is that market that is just really overwhelming right now, because every time a house comes on the market, I mean, that's where you're getting 40 and 50 offers on a house. So how do you help that buyer? You as the lender, how do you help that buyer maybe get that house when they only approve for 250 and get that house? What do you do in their offer? What do you tell the realtor? Say, hey, if they can do this, they can do that. How do you do it?
Well, I mean, from a lending standpoint, I educate them first.
Okay.
give them the information they need in order to be able to be put in a situation where we can put together the best offer we can possibly put together.
Okay.
Right now, once we've done that, once you as the realtor, once you send the document, send over the request for the contract, I'm going to ask for that same information to be put on that email so that I can reach out to that listing agent, let the listing agent know how strong of a file we have. Explain to them, hey, my client has a 700 credit score. My client has $40,000 in the bank. My client has, whatever that we need to say in order to give that buyer, that seller and that listing agent enough information in order to say, okay, we really like this client. We don't have to
We
worry
like this
about the
client,
money. We don't have to worry about a
Right.
whole bunch of different things.
Right. And sometimes that don't even matter, because sometimes when they get a cash offer, they'll overlook all that because they're ready to move themselves. So sometimes they'll look at you, be like, this was the best offer, but this cash buyer came in and they can close in 10 days. But with that saying they can close in 10 days, a lot of sellers are asking for lease backs, to stay in the house 30 days, even after they close. So now with me asking that question on a lease back, when the seller asks for a lease back, of course they become the tenant. The buyer has to understand, if they go past that first mortgage payment, that they are still responsible for that payment,
Right.
not the seller that is now the tenant.
Correct.
And I think some of them get confused about that. So
Well, the one thing that I would tell them honestly is understand that when you're closing, when you put yourself in a position where you're closing at the beginning of the month as opposed to the end of the month, just know that if it's at the end of the month, you're skipping a full payment, right? So let's say that we're closing in August. At the end of August, we know that September, October is our first payment. Compared to if we're closing at the beginning of the month, August the 1st, same deal. So now we're talking about we've had at least 2 pay periods in order to stack a little paper. So in terms of looking at the lease back, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to lease back, that's money you just put to the side so that you can use that money to help pay that mortgage when that mortgage comes due.
Do you think that because a lot of sellers are wanting to stay and not be charged a fee? Do you think that's fair to the buyer, especially if they asking for over 30 days?
Absolutely not. It's not fair, but unfortunately, they're gonna get tired of hearing this. That's the game that we're in right now. That's the market that we're in. Because if you won't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah, if you won't do it, somebody else will. And that's what I wanted you to say, because a lot of the buyers, yes, they still want to charge the seller, but then they look, if you don't charge me, we'll take your offer, stuff like that. So we just have to be mindful of it's just so much, because the buyer's agent, when they present that to the buyer, they's like, well, can they do this? Only thing the buyer's agent is doing is presenting to the buyer what the seller's agent said. So it's really nothing that you can do. You either take it or you leave it. And that's just, it's too many offers on one property now. So the seller has too many choices. It's not like it was back in 16 where they was like, oh, this. Now they can be like, oh, good. So it's just too many offers coming out there. It's just too many offers.
Right.
So let me ask you another question. One of the questions that is coming up is, on a loan, how long is the processing time? Does it depend on the buyer? If they present everything, if they don't present everything, how long will it take? If they do present everything, how long will it take?
Okay, that's easy. I can answer that before Kay does. Typically, what we do honestly is we request a lot of documents up front anyway. So when you talk about the processing time, if you submit all the documents up front, once I've requested them, we're talking about a 48-hour turn time.
Is that to get pre-approved through credit underwriting, just a pre-quad? What is that?
Well, no, it's a 48-hour turn time to get it into processing and get a processing opportunity to review the file, to get it prepped for underwriting. So all in all, you typically talking about 4 days, 48 hours for the processor to look over everything and make sure everything's right. And then an additional 48 hours to submit it to underwriting.
Oh, Oh, okay. Okay. Now, Miss K is the processor. Is she available to speak right now?
Yes, she is. Let me let her slide into the camera here a
Okay.
little bit.
Hi, Miss K.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You are the person that buyers don't like to speak to. So let me say, you are the one that buyers need to understand that the documents that you ask for and the lender asks for, they come from the underwriter. So
Correct.
you as the processor, even though he asks for documents, can you tell him what you do as the processor through the whole process?
Sure. In my opinion, the processor is probably almost the most important person in the process as far as the operations side of things goes. A lot of people will think it's the underwriter, but from a processing standpoint, it's our job once the loan officer has packaged it the way he wants to package it, decide what program is best for the buyer. Then it's our job to take. It's like taking someone's vision and bringing it to fruition. So it's my job to take that and determine what's needed and also what's not needed, because you can over process a file
Okay.
that it gets to the point to the back end that it creates a whole lot of havoc. And that's why I say our position is probably one of the most important, because it's my job to paint the picture. If I don't paint the picture accurately, it's going to cause problems. Or if I give too much information, it's going to cause a problem. So it's really important the processor find a healthy balance by understanding what documents are actually needed for this particular situation for the underwriter to make a decision of yay or nay. So our job is to put that on the forefront. And it doesn't mean that once the underwriter gets it, that he or she is not going to request additional information. But our job is to try to make sure that we set the tone, because if you leave it up to the underwriter, then sometimes the underwriter comes back asking for all kind of stuff because you haven't made it clear.
To
She
them.
doesn't know which direction you're going. Now, the more documentation you disclose, then the more you're putting yourself in more position for more questions to be asked. So it's very important for the not just the loan officer, but the processor to know exactly what the goal is for that buyer and for that loan, so that we make sure and present the right information to the underwriter. And to go back, and I know DeMont kind of answered the question about timing. Timing is specifically on the loan officer and the buyer.
Okay.
Because some loans, once
Yeah.
he submits them, I can get it through and get it in processing the same day. I mean, get it into underwriting the very same day.
Okay.
Some buyers, you may need some additional information. It may take additional time to get that information. So responsiveness and all of that plays a part in how much time it's going to take to get a file to processing.
What has been in any of the loans that you process, what is the most documents that you have to keep requesting over and over and over again?
You would be surprised. It's the things that people know that they have to submit: bank statements and pay stubs. And the reason is this, though. Here's the reason why. To me, and it's written, education is a big part of this.
Yes.
The tone that you set with the buyer and the expectations that you set at the front is really going to determine how my interaction with the buyer goes on the back end, right?
Okay.
If you have
Okay.
a buyer who understands exactly what they're getting into, what the expectations are, how to interpret the turn times, because even though in their minds, I submitted a contract to you, you had 30 days to close this loan, right? But they're not considering the turn times. They're not considering the weekends. They're not considering those small things that take out from that what seems like a literal 30-day time period. So it's very important to set the tone at the beginning, so that on the back end, when I'm reiterating what's already been said, it's not they're not frustrated about getting the documents. They understand why. And it also comes from me being able to explain what's really going on. So that makes me kind of a hybrid, because I'm licensed. Most processors aren't licensed and can't have the conversation about the loan itself when it comes to rate and all of that. I can. So it kind of puts me at an advantage to where I don't have to go back and involve the LO, because I can have that conversation, unless it's something that we can't, that they don't get or I don't get.
Exactly.
Yeah, but other than that, your processor is very important. The skills a processor has can either help make or break the deal.
and that's where you said something earlier that really a lot of buyers don't understand is that holiday coming up. So just
Yeah.
like now, Labor Day is coming up. So that sometimes that takes away 2 or 3 days because you're off. You know, the
Yes.
Federal Reserve is closed, the bank is closed. So when it comes to Labor Day, if closing can't be on the 6th or the 7th, you might need to move it on the 8th, or you need to
That's
move it
right.
that Thursday.
That's
You
right.
know, so sometimes that needs to be explained to the buyers as well. Okay, so both of you all are here. When Mr. Mathis get the documents, like here request the 2-year tax return, here request the pay stubs, here request uh, the 401k statements, here request, bank statements. One thing I do want to say about bank statements, the buyers need to understand that when they present the bank statement, it must have the bank name on it.
Oh
Some of
yes.
them will try to submit the bank statements without the bank name. You must have the bank name on it. And
Correct.
like as far as your 401k, they want that most recent one. They don't want the one, this is August. They don't want January. They want the one maybe July, August, because they
Correct.
being a loan officer, a branch manager, and a loan processor, you all know when this stuff is sent out to everybody.
Yeah.
You all know the cycle that everything goes through. So when
Right.
you get all the documents together and he get all the documents together, once you get that together, all the documents, where does it go from you?
So for me, once I validate income, validate that we don't have large deposits or whatever's going on with the bank statements, then all I do is now my job is to package it for the underwriter. Hey, here, Mr. Underwriter, we have a buyer who's trying to do, purchase $350,000. He's using the down payment assistance program. Get it. So I kind of write a story, and then I have all the documents based on whatever company's process placed in certain positions so that the underwriter can go through and review to make sure that we have everything that's necessary to
Okay.
go with the picture that we've painted. Yeah, and if there's something missing, and
Mhm.
most of the time, here's the key. That first go around is very important as far as submitting the file to the underwriter, right? Because
Okay.
there are usually going to be several go arounds. Now, our goal as a personal goal with how we do things, you may hear him say or me say front load, right?
Okay.
Sometimes in this business, we get in a hurry from the realtor to the LO to the everybody wants things done pretty accurately, but then they also want a good job done, right?
Yes, they
And
do. Yes,
sometimes
we all
it's
do.
you want a good job done. And sometimes it's really important to make sure and have people to understand that, yeah, I can do this 12-day closing, but do we have the buyer that's ready to push for a close, a 12-day closing? It's about being realistic. But our job, what we try to do is front load and make sure, because he's underwritten, because I've underwritten to a certain extent, and I understand exactly what the underwriters, well, I won't say exactly what they're going to ask for, but I have a pretty good idea. We ask for the things that we know the underwriter is going to ask for up front,
Okay.
right? So that way, as the file goes in, when we go in on that initial submission, the goal is to have very few conditions. The buyer get afraid when you say it's conditionally approved, when that's actually a good thing. That just means, hey, we got it, but there are some loose ends we need to tie up in order to make sure that we can finish it up. So our loose ends, we try to make minimum. So we want to come out with 2 or 3 conditions as opposed to a page full of conditions that are a list of things that are very redundant in the process that we already know is going to be asked for. Why not go ahead and start working on that? Because if we wait, what happens is once we wait, and you have to wait for me to tell you, instead of that clock starting when you recognized it, now it's going to start when I recognize it, and we've lost a day or two in the process. So for me, it goes to the underwriter, and then the underwriter makes a decision of if we still need some things and what those things are.
So let me say something. Let me ask you something. When you say a 12-day closing, sometimes if you're paying cash, it's easy to do a 12-day closing. And sometimes it's easy to do when you're having financing, but they have to understand that's when you and the title company really have to work together. The title company have to make sure the paperwork is done. And that's sometimes with these loans, they have to order a survey. Sometimes, depending on the day that you get that contract, that survey might take 10 days.
That's
And
correct.
you can't close a loan until the survey is there.
That's correct.
Now, some people don't want a survey and some people will, but most loans must have a survey. So when you say 12 days, are you talking about a FHA loan? Are you talking about a conventional loan? Are you talking about a VA loan? Which one?
I've had loan officers in every type of loan try to submit a loan and close in 12 to 18 days on a regular basis. But here's what's happening.
Okay.
In those situations, you're absolutely correct. But you got to understand, in our world, rarely are we going to be dealing with cash buyers. Most of the time, we're going to be dealing with people who are trying to finance. The cash buyers are our competition. The ones that you talked about earlier that are out there buying up all the houses, and our people can't really find the homes. But most of the times, it depends on the type of LO that you have, right?
Mhm.
And there is more than one way to skin a cat, right? Everybody has their way of kind of doing things, but here's the way that's detrimental to the process. Even if you're comfortable with it, it's detrimental. When you get a contract, right? Say you're the realtor, and then you contact Demont and say, hey, Demont, I have a contract for you. I'm going to get this contract to you within the next 24 hours, right? At that time, he's been alerted, right? What should happen in that moment is he should already be contacting the buyer to pep the buyer, hey, I need updated pay stubs and updated bank statements, because 9 times out of 10, the documents that we pre-qualified on could very well be outdated. We may need some updated information. So he should already get the buyer's expectations set about what's about to happen. But this next part is where we lose a lot of time. A lot of times as a processor, say for instance, you submit the contract to Demont on the 10th.
Okay.
I don't get it until the 24th, but you still want to close the file on the 30th. So you're giving your processor 6 days to close the file.
So why do you not get it a couple of days later? Why do you get it on the 24th?
Because you have a lot of loan officers who pre-qual is given very loosely. So they get people out there looking and buying homes, and they don't start doing the work until they get a contract. Okay. So now it's taking you time, now that you have the contract, to get it sufficiently, because it has to be in a certain, you have to have a certain amount of documents in order for it to come to me. Right. So if you're taking that time to get it prepped instead of doing that and making sure you have a solid pre-qual, one thing I like about the way Demont works with the verification of employment, because we know income can be the most iffiest thing for a lot of people. He tries to do that on the front end to make sure that income is 100% solid. If we're going to have an issue on the file, it's not going to be about income, for sure, because we're going to make sure that that's settled and taken care of on the front end. But if you've given out an IFRI pre-qual on an old check stub and an old bank statement, and then when we roll around the pre-qual and you get new stuff and then it doesn't match up, now you got to figure out, you got a contract. Now you got to figure out, you've had these people go out, get a home, get a contract. Now the LO, you're sitting there trying to figure out how to structure this file, and it doesn't get to me until a week later, and we've lost now the buyer is oblivious to all of this, right? They're thinking their process is going, but it's just sitting with the loan officer. Yeah. So it really, that front end is so very, very, very important, because if you have that type of loan officer, you're going to need a very, very, which I don't care how strong you are, that kind of process will clog up everything on the back end, if that makes sense, because
it does.
Everything's going to be rushed, right? And then what happens when everything is rushed is now your buyers feel rushed. I think that passes on. When we're on the phone and we're conversating, they can tell when we're pressed for time, and so I think it's a spillover. So I think it's really important that when realtors or loan officers be realistic about what their close dates are and while they're there. And some of them, they just feel like, regardless, we want the loan to close the original day, because they can't go back to the buyer and give them the valid reason as to why it sat for 7 days,
So let me ask you something again. The main thing about the pay stubs, because for yourself, when the buyer submit the pay stub to Demont and it's 2 weeks over, I just sent you them pay stubs 2 weeks ago. Tell them the importance of having an updated pay stub, because sometimes people need to understand that you might work overtime this week.
Correct.
You didn't work overtime this week. So they can't count the overtime unless it's been consistent for a year or two, depending on the lender. So you are asking for the updated pay stubs and bank statements. Can you explain to the buyers that are listening Why do you all ask for that so much? That's one of the main things that you all do ask for.
That's very true. The first reason is that based on the date that you're pre-qualified, a lot of times if the pay stubs, if you don't have current income within the last 30 days, that's what they're going to want.
Yep.
So if we have a pay stub from last month, you
Right.
just best believe that you know you're going to need an updated pay stub for this month, right? So now let's say we did that. The month asked you submitted pay stubs for a pre-qual, right? And then you got your contract, and then here comes the month again saying, hey, we need updated pay stubs again because those were from last month. We need them within 30 days. So now you sent them the second time. Now, say once he does everything and gets the file already, gets the file to me, I have to validate, and even though he's calculated it, I have to validate that that income is solid and it's valid. I'm not just using the pay stub to do that. I'm using the pay stub along with the verification of employment, along with the W-2s. So I have to sit there and kind of make sure that it all matches. If there's any discrepancy, that could cause a problem. So sometimes I may have to go back and say, hey, guess what, buyer? You gave me 2 recent pay stubs. One of them had 37 hours and the other one had 40 hours. That's really important because what a lot of buyers don't realize is even if you know you're a 40-hour-a-week employee, if you submit a pay stub that has less than 40 hours, that will put you in a situation where your income will be averaged.
I'm glad you said it. And then also too, please explain to the buyers that when DeMont get the paperwork or the bank statements and they see how much money they have, but you ask for an updated one in about a month, and you see this big deposit, please explain to them that whoever put that deposit in has to show where they got that money for, or it will stall the file, because that's what happened a lot. Because once they apply for a loan, anything that you submit to that lender in the beginning, and if you got additional money, please explain to the buyer why you have to have proof from the source.
Then you're right. That's exactly what that's called. That's called sourcing large deposits. So there's a rule for most, whether you're talking about well, they don't necessarily do it so much with conventional because it's not as risky of a loan. VA is VA either. FHA, you best believe, no matter what, this is the rule. It's either 1% of the earnest money or 50% of the total monthly income.
Oh, okay.
If you have a deposit in your bank statement that's either more than 1%, which is usually your earnest money amount, or it's more than 50% of your income, they want to know where those funds come from. And the reason is they want to make sure that you're not borrowing money to borrow money.
Yes.
Basically. They want to make sure that you're not getting money from, or or laundering money to borrow money, whatever. They just want to make sure that there is a paper trail for those funds. Now, the key of submitting it to DeMont the first time and then coming back and having to submit it to me again, usually what happens, earnest money has to be sourced always, right? We have to source earnest money. Usually that first bank statement that we get, your earnest money is not going to show on that yet. So in the process, you set the expectation that, hey, you're going to have to submit to me an updated bank stub, so don't go making large deposits.
Right.
It's all about setting the expectation. That way, when we pull that bank statement, we don't have to worry about seeing deposits that are over that amount because the underwriter can't unsee it. There can be no reason that they won't ask for you to source those deposits. And if you can't, say, for instance, your bank statement shows that you have $10,000 as a final balance as of right now today.
Okay.
But you have $5,000 worth of cash deposits in that statement that you cannot source. You cannot give us some tangible paperwork that shows where that comes from. Then that means that your balance now is $5,000.
Okay.
So you have to back those funds out of that balance, and that can kill a deal if you need 10 and you know you have 10, but you can only get credit for 5. That's very frustrating.
So let me say something about what you just said. If you get the bank, if the money is in the bank before they get the loan, the $10,000 is fine. But if anything happens during that process during the loan, is that when you're subtracting the $5,000?
Not necessarily. Any bank statement, even the original bank statement, the first bank statement that we review, we're looking for large deposits in that bank statement as well. Conventional requires 2 bank statements. So say for now we're in August. Most people haven't received their August bank statements, right? If they're coming at the end of the month. So the 2 statements we're going to have to get is June and July for now.
Okay.
Right? Because we don't have an August statement yet. So any large deposits, June, July, they're going to want to know where the money came from.
And that's even before they apply for the loan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It could be because you have to submit to now. It's about having a smart team because and having the conversation with your buyer, because some of our buyers will let us know, well, hey, I sold a car last month and We're like, okay, well, here's the thing. When is your bank statement date? Well, my bank statement date is on the 23rd. Well, we're not going to submit. We know we need to, but for this file, we're going to submit one for now because we're going to wait and get your next one. So it's all about having a conversation to know how you can avoid, because it's not that you're avoiding divulging information. That doesn't affect anything. You know what I mean? Because it's very frustrating, again, to know that you physically have funds in a file or know that you physically make the money, but someone is coming and telling you because you have write-offs that half of your income can't be counted. That's frustrating.
Okay, what about people that applying for a loan and they work on commission, and say, for instance, in January they got 5,000 and in March they got 4,000, but in June they got a 10,000 commission? How do you count that as income since it's not consistent?
It's averaged. That's why overtime, remember you mentioned earlier that most of the time overtime, bonus, and commission, in order for you to even use it, you have to have had it for 2 years. That way, that gives us enough data to be able to average. So we use a 2-year average anytime that's the case.
Let me say
so
this
is
too,
that the same thing with self-employed people? So what if you are have a business and you just started and you do t-shirts, or you a artist and they got this big deposit, but 6 months later there's no money in between, but then another 6 months later you get a big deposit? How do you count that money, or they have to be consistent again for 2 years?
Industry matters. Because if we can, making t-shirts is something that someone can say, hey, this is my business, I do it part-time. So that way you may not be looking for consistent deposits, but they are. And sometimes with self-employed buyers, you can avoid submitting their bank statements to where you don't have to even show a lot of that. So it just depends on the situation. It depends on the buyer, but industry matters for a short answer. Every industry, like if you're telling people, say for instance, you submit a tax return, right? And that tax return shows you made all above of 6 figures, right? But we get a bank statement and you only have $2,500 in it. Like, you know what I mean? Those kind of things are going to peg questions for the underwriter to then expect the bank statement that shows me what's going on with your deposits and your withdrawals, that you say you made this amount of money, but we only see this amount of money, right? And those things should really be worked out before the underwriter sees it between the front end team, so that, because again, once the underwriter sees that, she can't unsee it. Now we're working our way out of that hole the rest of the time trying to get the approval, as opposed to working that out on the front end.
Right. And explain quickly, sometimes when it goes to the underwriter, sometimes they have to understand that the underwriter is definitely the final approval for the loan, but they see things that we do not see. They are the ones that say yes or no. Oh, they critique it. I mean, they go through every pen, everything. So as far as like student loans, how much now are the percentage of the student? If you have a $200,000 loan, how much now is that counted towards your debt?
On FHA, it's a 0.5%. It used to be a full percent, but now it's a 0.5%. And the thing to keep in mind is, a lot of the IBRs are what's kind of triggering everybody at this point, because a lot of people are in income-based repayment plans and they either pay nothing or their payments are very minor, right? And IBR only works on a conventional loan. FHA does not consider when you're in an income-based repayment plan. They're going to count 0.5% of whatever your balance is towards your debt to income ratio, regardless.
Okay. So they are going to make a payment regardless of whether you have a payment or not. The lender and the underwriter, or the underwriter will make a payment for you to say, hey, this is what you, even though you're not paying, they're still going to say, we counting $400 of your debt.
Correct. Or if you can submit paperwork that says my payment. So here's the thing. Say it's you have $20,000 in student loan debt, right?
Okay.
Right. 1% of that would normally be $2,000. So we're cutting that in half. So now, $200. So we're cutting that in half and going to $100 now, right?
Okay.
So $100 of that debt is what will be counted towards your debt to income ratio. But then let's say you can go get paperwork that shows that your amortized payment, meaning the payment that you make on a regular basis to FHA, is $75. We can use the $75.
But they have to have the documentation from the lending service. That cannot be through your bank account. It has to be written. And how long does it has to be current? 30 days, or how long does it has to be current?
It has to be current, period, because if you're delinquent on student loans, you can't get approved.
Right.
Okay.
Any kind of delinquency will keep you from getting approved. There's kind of a background check on that run in the beginning. It's called a CAVERS check. When they request the FHA case number, that whole process entails them checking to make sure you don't owe any federal debt.
Oh, wow.
And if it comes back that you,
the debt we see is not the debt that y'all see, because y'all have a different system that can find
that
stuff.
is correct. That is correct. And sometimes buyers don't even disclose that they behind on it because it doesn't show up on their credit report. Right. And that may very well be the case, but CAVERS will find it.
Oh, wow.
Child support.
Yes, it will find child support. It will find a number of things. So those are other things that could change the whole trajectory of your file. Yes, once you've gotten in there, you've gotten good, and you think you got a good flow, and then here come these unexpected things that could throw a monkey wrench, in addition to what you mentioned earlier, like having to wait on a survey. In this market, having to wait on appraisals. The appraisals are the problem right now because
they're taking 10 to 15 days.
Yes.
We have a couple more minutes. Somebody asked the question, can you explain more about your loan company and what makes your business stand out from other mortgage companies?
You want to go? I've been talking, so you want to take that? I'll take it. From my perspective, and maybe we each can give a perspective. Okay. Us working together, and we've worked several jobs together before we actually did this. We've been in the mortgage industry for more than 20 years, but we've worked several jobs together and getting to this point.
Okay.
Our personal experience with buying a home was pretty bad, right? Our first experience. And that is what catapulted us into this business. So our reasoning for doing this is probably different than a lot of other loan officers' reasoning for doing it. We're 100% quality based over quantity. I think if you do the right thing consistently, the quantity will come. So making sure that the buyer has the best experience, to me, is most important. And best experience doesn't mean that we can get you a loan all the time. Exactly. At that moment, best experience means that I took enough time to educate you enough to know that even though you can't buy right now, you know exactly what you need to do to be able to buy. And you're confident that you have a team of people that if you have questions, concerns, they'll walk you through it, because a lot of loan officers, if you're not ready, they're not interested. They don't want to be bothered. So our dynamic of people, and to help our people, and that's what really Legacy Home Loans as a whole is really about. Okay. Making sure that we educate people enough to know why they're buying a home. Because I asked someone the other day, like, because everybody wants to own a home. Everybody wants the American dream.
The American dream.
Yes, but if we don't give anybody a different perspective to think about, like I asked her, what about, since the market is so crazy, what about you, instead of you buying your primary home first, why don't you buy an investment home first? Let your investment home pay for your primary home. And she was like, I didn't think about that. How does that work? So a lot of times people don't understand that there's more than one way to achieve that American dream. Us personally, we're in a personal situation where we sold our home and we were in our home for 17 years and we're in the process of buying again, but I'm not doing another 30-year mortgage. We're at the age that we don't want another 30-year mortgage.
Right,
So we
right.
need to put ourselves in position to where we make our money work for us this time. See, we didn't know all of that the first time.
Okay.
Now we do, and now we're going to do it a little bit differently. So we're different because we make sure that once you bought a home with us one time, you're going to know enough to know when somebody's juking and jiving you and not giving you enough information. The education is very important.
Can you all give out you all's information? It is 8:55. We have a couple of minutes. Can you
Sure.
all each introduce yourself again and give out your information? If you have a website, give them your website where they can reach you, because there are a couple of questions that are coming across the screen about, different types of income, and we
Sure.
are running out of time. So could you all please introduce yourself again to the people that came on later and give out your information so they can contact you?
So I'll start and let him wrap up since I've been talking. So I'm Kay Mathis. I am a loan originator, but I function on this team as a processor simply because that works best for us. He's the SME on the loan part, and I'm the SME on the processing.
Okay.
If you ever have any questions, even if you're a year away from thinking that you want to buy, reach out, because that puts you in the best position to know what you're up against. And putting a plan together is the best way to alleviate a lot of the stresses that come along with the loan process. So any information Demont's going to give you, because most of the touchy feely stuff he'll be reaching out to you for, and then I'm kind of the backdrop, and I'll be reaching out to let you know if you have any questions. But my personal email, you can write this down. If you just have any questions, you want to say, hey, Kay, I just have a question, I don't mind at all. You ready? That email address is the letter K, Mathis, Mathis, at myhomelegacy.com. So K Mathis at myhomelegacy.com. And when you do an application through Demont's link, which he'll talk to you more about, I'll see all of that background information. But if you ever need to reach me directly, my email address is probably the best way to reach me about any question pertaining to the process.
Okay, we have 2 minutes. Demont, can you give your information and your email address? And if you all have a website, I know you all just moved to this mortgage company, but can you all just give the information out where they can reach you?
Yes. Again, Demont Mathis. My email address is dmathis, DMATHIS, at myhomelegacy.com. I'm gonna give you my cell number where I can have you give me a call directly, because I like to speak with you in order to really get a feel for what you want to do compared to what you're trying to do, so we can try to put something together.
That's good. That's good.
My number is 214-235-4703. Now, the thing that I tell everybody is this: I'm not your average 8 to 5, 9 to 6. So if somebody's calling me at 8 o'clock and now we know it's 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, you don't have to worry. My wife knows what I'm doing. So if she hear a female voice on the phone, you know it's business. You know what I mean? So because she may answer the phone herself. So I mean, at the end of the day, you get really a 2-for-1. Because some days I may be busy where she may end up picking up. She can answer the question just as good, if not better than I, and vice versa. And then if it's something I don't know, she's my go-to. If it's something that I don't know, you'll hear me say, hey, I'm gonna say this. Hey, babe, what's this, and she'll answer for me. Again, 2 heads are better than 1.
All right. I want to say thank you all so much for coming. I would like to have you all back again. Again, this is Demont and Kay Mathis of Legacy Home Mortgage. They are based out of Dallas. They will do whatever they need to do to get you through a loan process if you can. If you're not ready now, they'll let you know how far in advance that you will be ready, and they will also give you a plan on what you need to do to buy a home. My name is Labrita Dews, Realtor, Dallas Fort Worth. You can reach me at 817-975-9284. You can also go to my website, www.labritadews.com, or you can also go to my Facebook page, Labrita Dews, the KLS Realty Group. You can just inbox me, you can text me, or you can contact me on my website. Thank you. Thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate you. Thank you, Demont and Kay, for giving out great information. I really appreciate you, Kay. You are like the person don't nobody want to talk to her. Everybody gets mad, or why she keep asking for this, or why he keep asking
I can
for
change that. I promise you, they'll think differently after talking to me. I can fix that. No worries.
You see how she just killed it today, right?
Yes, she did. Thank you all for coming. Tune in again every fourth Monday of the month. Buying and selling with Bree. Thank you again.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
It's a